Hello, my dear students. In the previous lecture, we came to know the sudden transformation in the mental makeup of Pearl. That was the sign of the Scarlet Letter, the product of Scarlet Letter. She was not willing to make friends. Rather, she was all the time willing to create fiends. So Pearl is possessed by a fiend. An impression is strengthened when Pearl denies having a heavenly father. And then further, she is told to change her mental makeup, but she is not willing to. In this particular chapter, we get the development in the behavior of Pearl, both as a character and as a symbol. Pearl is a mischievous and almost unworldly child whose uncontrollable nature reflects the sinful passion that led to her birth. Okay? Pearl's character is closely tied to her birth, which justifies and makes the otherworldliness about her very important. This is very important. She is a product and symbol of an act of adultery, unfortunately. This analysis of chapters of this particular novel would certainly help you to know about the main traits of the characters. So please listen carefully. So, Pearl's character is closely is closely related with the birth, He was a product and a symbol of an act of adultery. It really gives me pain when I speak like this, that there was a girl whose name was Pearl and she was the product of adultery. It's really disturbs my mind. But if you want to enjoy, if you want to take relishment in the novel, you have to think like this. You have to assimilate your power of thinking and power of experiencing the things in such a way that you can just correlate yourself with that character. Okay? So she is a product and symbol of an act of adultery, an act of love, an act of passion, an act of sin and a crime. Hawthorne, the narrator, states, Hawthorne is speaking about Pearl. I'm quoting, Pearl was worthy to have been brought forth in Eden, worthy to have been left there, and to be plaything of the angels. However, she lacked reference and adaptation to the world into which she was born. Unquote. The Puritan committee believed extramarital sex to be inherently evil and influenced by the devil. And because Pearl is a product of her mother's extramarital sex, Hawthorne raises the issue of Pearl's nature. Can something good come from something evil? Is Pearl inherently evil because she was born from what Puritans conceived to be an immoral, sinful union? Perhaps thinks Hester, who is fearful at least of such a predetermined outcome. Our modern sensibilities, however, shudder at the implication that an immoral act between two adults necessarily means that the child who is going to born out of their sexual affairs, will be inherently evil. It's very, very unfortunate. And it shows the Hawthorne's condemnation of Puritanism. It continues in this chapter. His strongest rebuttal of the society's self-serving false piety occurs when he ironically contrasts the Puritan community's treatment of Hester and God's treatment of her. Now he notes of Astor's fellow citizens. Man had marked his woman's sin by a scarlet letter, which had such potent and disastrous efficacy that no human sympathy could reach her, save it, make it free from all the sins. Ironically juxtaposed against the Puritan sentence that Astor wear the scarlet letter A is God, who is a direct consequence of the sin, which man thus punished had given her a lovely child to be finally a blessed soul in heaven. The comparison between the communities, Puritans, there is a comparison being established by the Hawthorne, So the comparison between the Puritans and God's responses to Astor's extramarital affair is dramatic. And in every novel there is some kind of dramatic elements. Without those dramatic elements, novel cannot be finalized. It cannot be made perfect. So, some words like some allusions like Luther, Martin Luther, about him. He was the first rebel against Catholicism, leader of the Protestant Reformation in Germany. Hawthorne has included Martin Luther just because he had revolted against such kind of suppression. So this kind of impact was also going to come or going to show its manifestation in their respective minds of Astor and her daughter. Astor has heard that certain influential citizens feel Pearl should be taken from her. So she becomes perplexed. Her mind is full of typical kind of feelings that her only support is going to be taken away from her. And that's the reason she goes to meet with the higher authority. Pearl has been specially dressed for the occasion in an elaborate scarlet dress embroidered with gold thread, because they are going to attend the governor's house, On the way, the governor's mansion, Astor and Pearl are accosted by a group of Puritan children. When they taunt Pearl, taunting is going on, pinching is going on, and both mother and daughter, they have been tolerating this for a long, long time. Still they go on living and living. Hats off to them. So she shows a temper as fiery as her appearance, my dear students, driving the children off with her screams and threats. Okay? So after reaching governor's house, Astor anyhow manages and pleads to authority that her only daughter, her only support should be living along with herself, and authorities give the permission to do so. So they are just coming back. Now the situation is this, that the Pearl is not going to take away from her mother. Further, in addition to preparing the way for the dramatic and crucial interview to come between Astor and governor, this particular chapter displays Hawthorne's imagination in developing Pearl's strange nature, a very, very vindictive kind, and the scarlet symbol, like a symphony with variations. The assorted scarlet references in this chapter add to the richness of the letter's meaning. Further, as the story moves ahead, Hawthorne also designs this chapter to advance the reader's knowledge of Pearl, both in appearance and actions. So what do you know about the typical character of Pearl? She is constant motion with rich and luxuriant beauty. Her actions are full of fire and passion. When the Puritan children fling mud at Pearl, she scares them off. She is an angel of judgment and an infant pestilence. Once her fire is spent, she returns quietly to her mother and smiles. She knows how to behave before her mother. Beautiful. Here in this meeting with the governor, we come across with a new character and whose name is Bellingham. And his home is a mixture of Eastern Puritan portraits and old world comforts, There is no wonder that this polished mirror of the breastplate on Bellingham's armor plays tricks on the eyes. It's a kind of question. Here in this fortress of Puritan rules where men will decide her fate. So Hester virtually vanished behind the scarlet A in the breastplate's reflection. So we get a new character in this particular chapter whose name was Mr. Bellingham. He was the governor. He was very supportive, and that problem was up to some extent, solved by him. Further, the governor shocked at Pearl's vain and immodest costume. It was very shocking that Pearl was wearing a typical kind of dress. Challenges Hester's fitness to raise the child in a Christian way. He asked Reverend Mr. Wilson to test Pearl's knowledge of Christianity. Pearl deliberately pretends ignorance. She knows each and everything, but she shows her ignorance. Answer the very first question, who made thee? Pearl replies that she was not made, but she was plucked of the bush of wild roses that grew by the prison door. It's a very, very pathetic line. Further, as the story moves ahead, leaving the mansion, Hester is approached by Mr. Hibbins, again a new character. These are the minor characters, my dear students. She was Governor Bellingham's sister. Hester refuses the woman's invitation to midnight meeting of witches in the forest. Some kind of supernaturalism has been aided by Hawthorne here, saying she must take Pearl home. But she adds that if she had lost Pearl, she would willingly have signed on with the evil. Further, so that this particular chapter brings back together major characters on the scene, on the stage. First is scaffold scene, Hester, Pearl, then Dimmesdale, then Chillingworth, as well as the representatives of the church, the state, and the world of darkness. Note, too, that underneath the surface action, Hawthorne offers several strong hints concerning the complex relationship of his characters. In Hester's appealing to Dimmesdale for help, in Pearl's solemnly caressing his hand, and in the minister's answering kiss lies solid hints that Dimmesdale is Pearl's father. Nevertheless, Dimmesdale is of the opinion that Pearl is a child of its father's guilt and its mother's shame, but still she has come from the hand of God. Very nice line. As such, she should be considered as a blessing, not as a curse. So the minister argues that Pearl will keep Hester from power of darkness, and so she is allowed to keep her daughter. And finally, they return home happily. And afterwards, when things unfold, minutes by minutes, each and every details, Roger Chillingworth, a certain kind of a very negative change appears in his character, that dark attitudes arise in his mind about taking revenge, because he has started getting some hints that Mr. Dimmesdale may be his enemy and lover of Hester. So, Chillingworth, there was a change noted by Hester in Chillingworth's physical appearance, now more ugly and dark and misshapen. These things are hinted to his appearance. Although he was suffering from some kind of physical deformity, he was not able to walk properly. Evil is winning the battle within him and is reflected in his outward appearance. when some kind of scuffle is going on in your innermost self, and that you're trying to take revenge on somebody else, so that starts appearing on your facial expression. And this is what happened to Mr. Roger Chillingworth. Roger Chillingworth's comment on Dimmesdale's strange earnestness and his statement that he could make a shrewd guess at the father suggests that he may already have decided on Dimmesdale's guilt. And it has already been pointed out that Mr. Chillingworth was very adept and very skilled as far as practicing medicines are concerned. So the battlefield has been marked, and the forces of light and darkness are vying for human souls. Then further, as we move ahead, we get a very interesting information about how Mr. Chillingworth was planning to do wrong to the Dimmesdale. So since first appearing in the community, Chillingworth has been well received by the town people, not only because they can use his services as a physician, but also because his special interest in their ailing clergyman, Arthur Dimmesdale. He was taking extraordinary kind of care for him. And people are very much aware of this. In fact, some of the Puritans even view it as a special act of providence that a man of Chillingworth's knowledge should have been dropped, as it were, into their community just when their beloved young minister's health seemed to be failing. Okay? So he was getting the popularity about his practice of physician. Dimmesdale protests that he needs no medicine and is prepared to die if it is the will of God, because he was very much in practicing of praying. He believed on prayer, so he agrees to put his health in Chillingworth's hands. Reluctantly, the two men begin spending much time together, and finally, at Chillingworth's suggestion, they move into the same house where, although they have separate apartments, they can move back and forth freely. Further, so here Hawthorne, what he is trying to do is trying to create the situation when these two can come together. Okay, and the truth which is kept hidden till now should be opened out. So gradually, the same of the town people, without the real evidence, except for the growing appearance of the evil in Chillingworth's face, begin to develop a suspicion about the doctor. Now the rumors are on his past and suggestions that he practices the black art with fire brought from hell gain some acceptance. Many of town people also believe that rather than being in the care of Christian physician, Arthur Dimmesdale is in hand of Satan, or one of the agents who has been given God's permission to struggle with the minister's soul for a time. So the people were aware of this fact. They were very much suspicious that something wrong was about to be done to Dimmesdale by Chillingworth. Further, the theme of good and evil battling is carried through in this particular chapter 9, and the name of the chapter is The Leech, ponderous and philosophical chapter with little action and much positioning of characters. We see the double meaning of the word leech, the decline of Dimmesdale under his weight of guilt, the development of relationship with Chillingworth, and the point of view of the town people. These things are combined together just to create a typical kind of new impact, which have strikingly opposing opinions about the influence of Chillingworth on the minister. As he ingratiates himself with the young minister, the town sees Chillingworth as a brilliant acquisition. On the other hand, they suspect that the relationship and proximity of Chillingworth and Dimmesdale have led to Dimsdale's deterioration. So Dimsdale's health had started deteriorating because knowingly he was having some kind of medicines, such medicines which were creating negative effect in his body. And it was all due to Mr. Chillingworth. Hawthorne purposely uses the old-fashioned term leech or physician because of its obvious double meaning. As a doctor, Chillingworth seems to be making complicated medicines that he learned at the feet of Indians. He also appeared to be sucking the life of Dimsdale. And as the people in town watch this particular struggle in between the two, they feel that this disciple of Satan cannot win, and that the goodness of Dimsdale will definitely prevail. You must be aware that whenever there is a combat between good and evil, finally good is going to win. So Dimsdale, however, is not so sure. Each Sunday he is thinner and paler. He was getting thinner and paler. He was losing his weight. He is struggling under the unrevealed guilt of his deed. The occasional habit of pressing his hand to his ailing heart has now become a constant gesture, because he was definitely suffering from some heart disease. So he turns down suggestions of a wife as a helpmate, and some parishioners associate his illness with his strong devotion to God. Although he discusses the secrets of his soul with his physician, Roger Chillingworth, he was planning to kill him, but never reveals the ultimate secret that Chillingworth is obsessed with hearing. Their relationship is further explored in the next few chapters. Okay? Thank you very much.